Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.O.A Podcast. I am your host, Onvermel, and today I am joined by Zack-Ta. Hello, Zack-Ta. How's it going?
Oh, not bad. A little tired, but what's new about that?
Not really anything new, to be honest. We're always tired, adulting, life, and all that, work.
Poor choices at night.
Ver- yes, staying up past the
That
crack
one,
of dawn and the crack of
one,
thunder. There actually was cracks of thunders. There was the crack of dawn around the horizon. There was crack of thunders, and then there was a butt crack.
such indecent weather.
Indecent weather. What an interesting description. But so yeah, today, would you like to tell everybody what we're going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about the well-known or extremely unwell-known hit single, but by hit I mostly mean miss, Xalax and somewhat similar turbo racers.
Well, Xalox technically wasn't the theme. I think it's called Racers back in the day. I think the best way to describe it, what it was a basically a tie-in theme with Lego Racers 2, the game, because first Lego Racers, basically took place with
Rocket.
all the different themes, and then the final boss was a made-up character that didn't exist. With the second game, essentially the final boss level is on the planet of Xalax, racing all these little alien racers on the with the Lego Racers theme, and it's a very different set or a theme to, saying it, because let's be honest, this isn't like high quality set designs here.
Yes. I have a lot to say about the video game too, but I think that could be a podcast for another day.
Probably.
The Exalics themselves, though, they were very unique in the sense that, as kids, okay, they're little simple sets, and when it came to budget, there's a set for you, and there's a nice charm to it and a good play feature for what it's worth, but it's really odd when you think about it because the figures, which are essentially a Lego block in themselves, were not really people in essence.
Although we always saw them as people. I mean, historically speaking, back in the day, you had one, Eck had one, and that was pretty much all we had for a while. Like, we got some later on in life, but let's be honest, we didn't even call them Exalics for a while because we referred to them as, well, Lupins.
Which, for the reason of, because the very first one we got, mine, was called Lupin. And thus, their race as a whole became Lupins.
Or at least as more of a colloquial name that we have for them. I think we've referred to them as Exalics a little bit more than we used to. But, I'll get there on this. They do have a nice look to them, like on this. Like, they're colorful, they're bright environments. Like, the races are very distinctive from each other, despite all their vehicles essentially being the same build.
They did have a nice array of colors, especially considering they used they were like one of the last to use turquoise and the old purple.
Mm. That is true. Because they were like 2001, I think. So at the tail end, but they were also like only one of the two themes to use sand purple, because Life on Mars basically introduced like kind of a sandier, kind of more faded shade of purple, and Exalx I think was the only other theme to use it. So it was interesting. They used a lot of interesting colors.
Yes, and I mean, on the theme as a whole, because we never knew that they were in the second Lego Racers game because we never played. I was not aware of that. I knew there was like the Adventure Johnny car in there, but the thing I did know was they were very limited, small sets, and didn't really know their story. So as we would do with anything that we did or didn't know, we came up with our own story. So I'm going to take the liberty to share that because of their short and exceedingly wide stature, they became very well known for flatulence. In less flattering terms, that. Because, yes, they had exceedingly large rear ends, and they were, well, when we were kids, we were probably like just before teens when we got.
It was your 8th birthday when
yeah,
you got Lupin.
Yeah, I wasn't even in the 2 digits, so it's a safe bet that a childish mind is going to have fun with that.
Yeah, see, I did know that they were in Lego Racers 2 because despite our second oldest brother, the Lost Toad, not actually being able to play it because he had borrowed it from a friend, but I think the game historically had issues. I think we were still able to see like the intro trailer, which so I knew it was in Lego Racers 2, but that was really about it. Like I didn't know they were on a different planet or anything weird like that. I just kind of knew they were in it. But yeah, no. Lupins weren't the most flattering creation of ours. I would say it's actually one of the Lego themes I would say that deviates most from its uh, quote unquote canon appearance because we knew nothing about them, and the whole fart thing basically became very prevalent very quickly, and since to this day, that has become a staple of them. And even so, that if you checked out your podcast, or not, sorry, your web comic, red comic, randomly assembled, you would they would show up there, and the whole joke that you have going is fart related or their um races around racing.
Yeah, because every set was a race car. So naturally, they were big in racing and big in farting. And I think a lot of it could be overlap because I'm pretty sure those farts do still power their cars.
The lore is very deep and heavy into this. This is the thing as
Very
when
thin,
the thing
but
is this
heavy.
was birthed right around that right moment when you start thinking you're funny, like you're that young boy, you think you're funny, the funniest thing in the world is a fart joke. But because that's almost nostalgic for us, it's kind of just stuck. Like we were never able. It also wasn't like a theme that needed like, oh, we need to have a proper lore. No, they're just little tiny race cars. Like we didn't need to come anything grander for it. It's silly and it's fun.
Well, as you said, it's nostalgia. And like we established this before I was 10, so certainly before you were 10. Eck would have been 10.
Heck was.
So,
Yeah, no, also about 10, yeah.
that's been like 17 years. So, and over the years, we just built upon it. That lore, while still thin, is there like a silent fart in the air. You
It
can't
lingers.
get it lingers.
Thing is, we did have like a fair bit of uh stuff about them like because there's two different molds that they used for the pilots of the vehicles. They had like one that had like spiky ridges down their forehead,
Which we refer to
and
Klingon.
basically a more square head, which Lupin was. And there's a very easy way now. If you had a spiky head, you talked a little bit more like this. But if you had a square head like Lupin, well, you have to talk a little bit more lethargic,
A low, slow talk, and yes, they are they're very mellow, and very mellow but sound very high strung at the same time.
Honestly, I would say there was just I would say like the thing that just like anytime we're doing anything with them, it's like it's basically just like what we're just kind of like being kids again. It's like we're very much just like yeah, we're going to be immature when we're doing some of this, and we don't really care. Like I collected a few of them. Like I only have like maybe half a dozen cards, like maybe not even. Anyone that had purple revolved around with it, I have those ones. But like there's not a whole lot to say honestly.
I mean, of all of them, I have all of them except the one from the first wave, which, interestingly enough, is your favorite because he's got purple in a purple car.
It's got 3 shades of purple, yo.
Yes, and yeah, they're pretty much exclusively just a race car in the character, except for the one singular set that had a ramp and everything, which I do own, but it was incomplete, sadly. And it's a surprisingly rare theme. Like, it's not popular by any means. You could get a sealed one. I did get a sealed one, I think, for $12, which is like maybe twice retail. You can easily get them for $3 a piece, and yet, on average, there might only be like 2 to 4 for sale. They are not. There's not a lot of them.
Not a lot of sets listings because I've come across the parts for the vehicles plenty times. Most people don't sell them as sets; they just sell them as parts usually. Although the one that is, I would say, actually rare is Ghost, the glow in the dark one. He actually one is a hard to find like one.
Yes, I could not get. You could not get one sealed, or even with box. I was able to get one without that doesn't even have the canister slash launcher, which is very sad because that's the garage is essentially one of the best parts. I want to have them all because you could arrange them to a big circle essentially if you have enough.
Those things can have some uses, but see,
Enough
Xalax.
determination.
The thing about like, the Xalax the theme was very much was something we made our own. That like our older siblings, it was very much the younger siblings created this thing. It was our thing. It wasn't like we didn't copycat the older siblings. And it was just there, and everyone I think who learns about it just kind of gives us a look and goes, "What?" And then they've learned, I think, not to question it.
Yes, there's much Lego lore, and we definitely gain most of ours as adapting our older siblings, specifically how ones. But yes, this was
Well,
our own. We created, which is probably why it's so childish in nature, is because it had no philosophical standings to go based upon. No basis of we love Lord of the Rings. They got big bums. They fart.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, How One and the Lost Tour are very much intertwined in their universes together. That you copied one, you copied the other. Like they're very much the same. But yeah, this is kind of the beginning where we started getting stuff they didn't have. We had a bit more freedom and liberties. But unfortunately, because we were young and we were definitely a lot more juvenile at that age than they were, um, yeah, we made a little fart machines. However, the theme did have a little, not complete fart machines, because it expanded a little bit into drone racers, which is it was slightly more normal because you had normal minifig heads on like little square bodies on like miniature pullback cars.
Yes, it's like they. I feel like they came at the same time, maybe earlier, but it definitely felt like they took the idea of Xalax and humanized it a little, make it a little more, okay, comparable, compatible. Like, okay, they aren't quite so far out.
Still small, budgeable cars with characters, but like drone racers, at least with the little figures, was I think 2003 or 2002. It was basically at least a year later, and we had more of those back in the day. Man, those characters didn't actually already had names, so those ones for me definitely showed the juvenileness first because, well, first off, the Flexies because they liked to burp. Well, the first one that Eck had was known for burping. Flexi, I believe it was, which is why they're called Flexies, because it's called Flexi.
I believe that it goes as they of course were clumped with the Xalax because they were short and had the same basically 2x2 space bottom. Uh, Gerard X became called Flexi because he did not have the alpha agent Flex, and I believe this was a face he would use, so Flexi. And because of the large mouth, and I think this slightly makes something more his own than my farting, they established the belching, which, interesting enough, the other Flexis that we've acquired almost all have a large open mouth.
Interesting enough, though, I'm pretty sure he was the only character who actually belched because I had the exact same set that I got shortly after he did. Mine was well, his name was Fluffer, so.
I thought one was Stinky, but maybe
No.
I'm thinking of a white bear.
Okay, I was going to get that. So, for him, I had known as Fluffer, which I know that's a stupid name. Sounds way dumber than I remember. I haven't said this character's name in a while. But then, you both got the same copy set. Mine was Dusty, and then yours was Smelly, I think, or Stink.
I thought
Stinky.
mine was Dusty.
No. Mine was Dusty. You've gotten this wrong so many times. No, my very first one that looks like Flexi's Fluffer. Right, the ramp guy, I had Dusty, and then you had, I think, Smelly or Stinky.
I forgot you had Flexi.
But then there's another one I got that I called. If yours was called Stinky, then I had another guy called Smelly. Needless to say, there was there was like an orange guy with the orange body I had.
Right, yes.
That guy was Smelly. I think yours was Stinky, and I had Dusty. Needless to say, not a whole lot of measure. I had a naming scheme.
I guess we should mention that because these ones with the actual figurine heads, because the first one acquired was called Flexi, they became known as Flexis, like Lupins.
There's Lupins and Flexis, very much by the name of the first one. Yeah, it's kind of just stuck like that.
And thinking on it, I think Flexis are technically immigrants, if you think about it.
I came up with a whole lore to explain it, but I don't remember most of it. I think part was like them and like when they got to Earth, they started to evolve to breathe normal oxygen because they actually breathe methane on planet Xalax. So when they come to Earth, they start to evolve to look more like human so they can breathe the oxygen.
No, I was thinking in the capital city, which is essentially a country for them, Farton, it's clearly the home of Lupin. Lupin is the mayor. So I think it's safe to say Flexis are immigrants from, Armpitsburg. No, right, they're from Belgium. I think Armpitsburg would be like the scratch lighter style Lupins.
Yeah, so
immigrants, all of them.
And the other thing, we actually have quite the group of characters, and they honestly, anytime we ever did anything to them, they were basically a one trick pony. Farts.
There's one in one of our joint effort webcomics called Crossover Championship, and yes, he can get the least amount of screen time because he is exclusively a one gag character. But thinking about I completely lost it. It had to do with the lore. I know it just. Oh,
Barchung, the
um.
location names. Speak, man.
You
Speak.
go ahead. I'll come back.
Okay, well, another thoughts with them. They were very much a phase. Like they were really popular at one point,
Yeah.
but I mean they're still fun to have, and they're definitely a quaint thing, a nice thing to collect a bunch of. But
Because they're cheap and easily.
yeah, and I'm actually glad that I've actually picked up some later in life just because I like them. Like even just like looking at the little pullback vehicles, I think of all the pullback vehicles Lego's done, they're probably still my favorite to be honest.
And like how we use them, I think we can establish that large themes can be chock full of large, boring characters. Town, I think, actually gets a pretty good number for interesting characters for the amount of figs, whereas in space and castle can really be hit hard that almost no one has anything more than a name. But Xalax, for a relatively small theme and kind of all one gag, there's actually quite a large diversity. Like everyone has got their profession, and we know kind of their individual personalities, despite the fact that they're all mellow and high strung at this. There's like two personalities there, and yet they're all kind of unique in their own way.
I think a lot of that came down to we got them at a slow enough pace that we had time to basically get one. We had like a year to form our personality before we got another one. Unlike castle themes, where you get a bunch of figs in one go, that maybe one fig from the group will get a personality. And town, as a whole, like which is Exotics and Lupin kind of like exist in the more city world, is that we understand what people in normal worlds do. We know what people's professions are. We understand how the modern world works. Medieval times, well, if you're not a knight or a wizard, what are you? There's no other, nothing's on the end of blacksmith. Those are the only things that exist.
And when you might have two peasants and like 150 knights across your various armies, yeah, the logics of reason aren't exactly there.
Needless to say, you have one knight. Okay, that's fine. He's cool. You get a second. Okay. By the time you get to like the 10th knight, they're all just the same. It's like it's a heroic knight. I got nothing else. General army people, army building kind of like armies were never as fun. But no, Lupin and like the Xalax theme definitely managed. I mean, the characters had names. They had distinct enough colors and looks to it. And then we had the whole thing about burps and farts. So I think we had a power scaling at one point where it's like, okay, this guy has the toughest farts, followed by this guy and this guy. This guy's the most explosive farts. Like we had a power scale, I'm pretty sure.
Well, there's the one guy, Surfer, who looks like he's constipated, who has a really hard time farting, and I do know when he does, it's really loud. It's like it's powerful, but there's like no stench to it. It's just like a rumble. But like I do know a lot of their names, which are basically the name of their set, which could in theory be the name of the character, is Lighter, Hat. He lights things on fire when he farts. Scratch can like peel the paint off your wall, like like nails across a chalkboard. And then of course, Lupin's just farts.
I know my one guy, Dusty, the one guy who actually didn't have a obnoxious name like the others I had. He basically had the whole Pigpen from Peanuts things. He farted, cloud of dust around. He was like pretty had a cloud of dust like Pigpen from Peanuts. So like he would have that sort of fart. Then you had Fluffer, which I'm pretty sure historically had the most powerful farts. Maybe not necessarily the smelliest, but he had the most powerful. And then Smelly was just smelly. He didn't even fart. He just stunk. He just straight up stunk.
He was the silent but deadly.
So.
Yeah. And it has to be said here that, well, this was definitely very contained between us three younger boys and whatnot. It was very immature child. It's like inside joke almost. There's definitely some heavy lore that's branched out because like how it's affect Gerard's oldest fig and his headcanon is like
Yes.
It's still a thing today, and it's even I think known in Michael's little universe.
It was an infamous event in the Legoverse, and someday I might actually plan to talk about our different universes and how they work. Like basically have one-on-one with like the different brothers and actually talk about that.
Sounds like a good topic for David, someone you can actually who doesn't.
For mine, I'm going to talk to David's about it.
Exactly. No, like if you're when you're explaining it to someone who doesn't know.
But one thing that Exotics actually got a lot of equipment. Because despite, the sets only having a race car and a figure almost 90% of the time, they had a lot of extra stuff because you can make a house for them really easy and quick out of like leftover parts because they're really small. And second, you had all these small creator vehicles that were too small for minifigs, but you just slightly hollow it out, and boom, this guy's got a cop car, that guy's got a Jeep.
Yeah, they were great. It was very easy to equip them because, yeah, like, you get your 250 piece bucket, you make your one house out of that. You can get another small shack out of there, but then you get a few leftover bricks. You can't do anything. Oh, wait, I can make a 2-level high hut. Voila, a house. And, like, yeah, like the X-Pod race car made a just slightly modified, became boom, you have a police car.
Well, they were just the right scale, the same scale as like tiny turbos and stuff. So a lot of those vehicles just got retrofitted to be their not racing cars. So despite a theme that basically already didn't have much, like they got a lot of extra stuff towards them. So like if you were just like looking about like pure quantity of stuff that a theme had, like they surprisingly were able to go. And I think that's one thing that kept them alive to an extent was that once also their theme only ended like Xalax only was a 1 year, might have had a set in the second. I think maybe cross on the second year. Drone Racers only had those versions of guys made for 2 years. So by 2004, these guys were gone. But because all these like tiny turbos and such had small vehicles that were the perfect size for exactly, I think it did help keep them alive a little bit more. I mean, I think they were going to survive either way, just because we're obnoxious boys.
I had this like one. It wasn't tiny turbo. It was kind of like tiny turbo. It had like a little bumper on the front that would cause the driver to go up, but it was like a monster truck, giant wheels with like a tiny little like old-fashioned car top. I took that old-fashioned car top, gave it smaller wheels, and voila, one of my Flexies had a nice hot rod.
Like I said, there's uses for these guys too, and there's definitely just a level of charm that tiny like body has. Like especially like I personally really like the Flexi to be able to just like swap out a head, a bunch of different polys, and just it's such a simple little thing, but they're cute. They're cute.
The Flexies do allow you to really broaden your army if you don't want all identical characters. But I still find it odd that the Xalax were so alien, like, especially when it was like, granted, like, I think this isn't the first time they made Lego of a video game or kind of a video game of Lego at the same time with, because I think Lego Island with like Pepper and whatnot was technically based on the game.
Yes, it was.
And like this is clearly based on Lego Racers, but it's still weird to think like they are so weird.
Well, I would say it's like Island Extreme Stunts was basically based on was Lego probably wanted to bring Pepper into a normal theme, but Lego Island just are basically because the original
collection of old sets.
Basically, exactly. So we get Lego Island, you have it's just basically based on old sets with like couple unique characters. So and that was the base of the second game as well. So may as well just like make a theme and make a tie-in game that we can bring Pepper into it, while like Xalax was let's just rocker like we're having this game, we're gonna have the final like level be on like this planet of make it like I actually don't know what Lego was thinking. It's the early 2000s. Lego was trying anything, so why not a little rate like a little what's called a little race of racing aliens and make little cheap sets that are very easy to produce. All you need to do is slightly different prints and boom, bada bing, bada boom. A little bit, a few extra bucks.
I mean, every mold was unique at the time, but let's be honest, there was 4.
And I feel like a lot of people probably got those as gifts from like grandparents or parents, just as like small little gifts, or you had a few extra spending bucks. So they probably sold well enough because I don't remember seeing them on store shelves. To be honest,
I can't say I ever saw them on store shelves because the only 2 we ever bought in stores was mine was a gift from a family friend, and X was a gift I think after he got out of the hospital.
Yeah.
So we didn't really buy them ourselves. They were just like gifts, and other than that, so they definitely I do not believe that they were on shelves very long.
I mean, I don't think they were also the most. They weren't like Lego wasn't like, oh, we're gonna make so much money off of this. I think they kind of knew it wasn't going to be a huge thing, but just a side thing. So
I should do more of those.
But it's. I'm not going to say this theme deserves anything, but I will say this: there is a charm to just having those tiny little 3-piece vehicles, and then having them bump into something and have the character just fling out.
I will say, as far as a collector goes, if you're looking to collect them, they're cheap and they don't take up a lot of space, unless everyone gets into them, in which case you won't be able to find any, because like I said, there's like 4 lots per set.
Like I said, you can find the parts on Brooklyn real cheap.
But yeah, there's a nice little charm. They're quaint, and if you've got a bit of an imagination, they're really a good sit down and come up with something, not an actual play around and figure it out sort of thing. But yeah, they're a little underrated, I think. But
No. They're not underrated. They're just not rated. No one's rated these things.
You're right. They
no
really
one's given a good nor bad. There's no
they
reviews.
need to be rated like, PG at least. They use some foul language over there.
So the thing is like this is really much one of those things where it's like Galador is rated lowly. You got Bongo that's rated highly. You got Ninjago that's rated highly. You got like every other Bongo like Lego theme I can see is rated, but like Exotic is one of those things where it's like, this is unrated. Like this is not yet. This like that game pre was always like not yet rated.
Okay, so we know how.
It's been like 20.
Okay, so Galador we've established is a well-known bomb in Lego.
Everyone agrees.
Xalax feels like Snap. Essentially, was that a thing? What's that?
Okay, see, Snap actually was a failure though. That's the thing is, everyone knows that historically Snap was a failure. It was just a copycat and connects. I have no idea if Xalax sold well. I'm assuming it sold well enough, because at least Xalax was so cheap that it probably sold off shelves well enough.
It did get a second
wave. It's just like, I have no idea if it's, like I said, no one's rated. I don't know if it sold well, if it sold okay, was it in discount bins? I don't know. But whatever reason, it existed, it's in the past, and we made fart jokes with it the whole time.
I'm just thinking on their on their names. It's actually weird, like Lupin, Lighter, Scratch. I feel like they're kind of somewhat descriptive names as well as possibly their trick. And then like in the second wave you got Snake.
Pulse,
but
Ghost.
Still kind of like more descriptive. But then Snake kind of feels like
description.
That one feels well.
You ever been called a snake?
Now I know what his personality is.
I'm saying like the name scheme of the second wave I think definitely was I always thought the second wave was the cooler one because let's be honest, Snake was always cool because we had a friend of the family who had Snake. A friend of ours, Adam. Well, with the...
I know he had some.
Yeah, no, he had specifically Snake, I know. And, well, I remember always thinking that cool, but I always wanted Ghost. I still want Ghost. He glows in dark. You make Lego glow in dark, I want it. It just becomes way cooler.
It's like there's purple
Also,
for you, chrome, and then glow in the dark.
Speaking of interesting colors, Ghost Vehicle uses a shade of like a orange that was very rarely used, that we refer as Everest orange because Orange Expedition used it. It's not Keat orange, it's slightly brighter than Keat orange, and was only used from like 2001 to 3 at most. It was a very obscured color, and it's used in one Bionicle set, the Gakko Bird's beak. Just saying, I'm just saying, my Bionicle lore right there.
Yes, it is a very seldom used color that, even if it comes in more sets, I only know of it from the Orient Expedition wave with specifically the Mount Everest bit, which I don't even think it's even in the Pip and Reed set. I don't think that Yeti has that color. I think it's like the Little Baron set and the temple itself.
Like those two sets have it, and I mean, we mostly associate with those two sets, so yeah. Like I said, it really wasn't used. I think Belleville and Scat, like Belleville used it a little bit more, and like those sort of stuff, but
potentially.
Yeah, no, overall, just Xalax is a cute little theme. I'm glad I own it, and the best thing is you can have a whole collection and take up very little room. I love it when a collection takes up little room, because like as someone who's just completed his Bongo collection, it takes up a lot of room.
And even with their garages, canisters, launchers, whatever you want to call them, they are very storageable. They're triangular, so they stack and they pack away real nice.
You could fit them in a shoebox. They stink like shoes too, so it's very appropriate.
Oh, how dare you make it sound so?
You're right. My shoes don't smell that bad.
They will stink up the shoebox.
They will stink up the shoebox, but yeah, I think we pretty much covered all that there really is.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot, which is fine.
We definitely were loose on this, and we got that more of this than I thought we would.
I'm impressed. I mean, this is kind of appropriate because you got your first one on your birthday, and you just celebrated your birthday this weekend.
How dare you give away the secret? Everyone knows it's in December.
Fool. Wrong. But yeah, no, this was fun. This was fun. I hope anyone listened this far into the podcast that isn't someone I know personally. So if anyone lasts this long, I got a special gift for you. You're welcome.
I do apologize for the lack of quality fart jokes in this episode.
We should have had more. We really should have had more fart jokes.
Unfortunately, we don't know a lot of good fart jokes.
No, not really. I just know enough fart. But yeah, this has been the T.O.A Podcast. I have been your host, Onvermel, and we are retiring from the night.